Alright YouTube, in this video we are going to see how to convert HTML template into the Codeigniter framework. Fine, this HTML template is just a single page, so this tutorial will be very short, but in the next tutorial we will see multiple pages of HTML template and we will convert it into Codeigniter framework. Fine, now let me show you. The first thing I'm going to show you is the HTML template, which is a single page HTML template. You can see it's on the desktop. This is starting from header and ends on footer. You can see the extension is index.html. The same way we are going to convert it into Codeigniter framework. You can see this is running on server, that's why it's on the local host. Fine, this is exact same. Fine, these are the steps we are going to follow. Don't worry, you will get this in the description. Fine, first open the HTML template. Let's open the HTML template. As I said, it's on the desktop. Open it in the Notepad++. Fine, the next step we are going to do is, let me write it so that you can clearly follow. The second thing is run the XAMP. Mine is already running, that's not the problem. Fine, the third step is we are going to download the Codeigniter from the official website. I have already this is the link. As you can see, there are three versions. The Codeigniter 3 is the current version, so we are going to work on the Codeigniter 3. Click on the download. I have already downloaded and kept it on the desktop. Extract it, and we have done this. Now what we have to do is we take the extracted folder and place it on the HTDOCS folder, which is under the XAMP. If you have XAMP, you have already know what is HTDOCS. Just copy it. Just copy the extracted folder and paste it on the HTDOCS. Don't forget to rename it. And right now this is your Codeigniter project. Fine, let's name it as basic website. Now we have done this. Now the next step is we are going to open our editor. I am going to use Sublime. Feel free to use whatever code editor you like. Fine, let me open it. As I said, it's in the HTDOCS folder under XAMP folder. Let me choose it and select the file. Fine, the next step is we are going to modify the config folder. You will get the config folder in the application folder. This is the config folder. The first thing, we are going to modify the Autoload file. It's inside the application. Fine, let's open the Autoload file. These are the files which will be reloaded automatically. We are going to need a library of database and email, and let's have the helper and pass the URL. This function will load default. That's the reason why we are configuring it. Now get into the config folder. This is the base URL. This is our base URL, and we are going to copy the base URL. Basic website is our project name. Don't worry about this error, we'll solve it. This is our base URL, and place our base URL on the config file, config.php file. Fine, don't forget the slash or else it will throw an unusual error. Now we are going to modify the database. This is the database error, that's what it is showing up. Fine, inside the config folder we have a file called database. We just have to give the username and password. Mine username is root and password is nothing, which is for XAMP, default one. Now we are going to understand how Codeigniter works. So when there is a request for the URL, base URL, what Codeigniter will do is Codeigniter will search on the routes.php page. In the routes.php page, which will be on the config folder, it will search for the controller, default controller, and it will check what is the default controller. Our default controller here is welcome, and Laravel sorry, this is Codeigniter will find the welcome controller on the controller folder, welcome.php. This is the controller, and after finding the controller, it will run a function, and inside the function it is going to load the views folder. And inside the views folder there is a file called welcome message. We can find the views folder on the application folder. You can see this is the file, welcome underscore message. You just have to replace our HTML template. Fine, we have done this, and we know where the index page is loading. Before that, let me go through once again. First of all, once the base URL is loaded, Codeigniter will go and check on the routes.php. Inside the routes.php there will be a default controller. Codeigniter will check the default controller, and once Codeigniter find the default controller in a location, in its location, we know Codeigniter's controller is in the controller folder, and it will check the controller name, which is welcome.php. In the welcome.php, it will run a function. In that function, what happens is a view is going to get loaded. This this view, which is welcome underscore message, can be found on the views folder, which is under application folder. Fine. Now what we are going to do is we are going to replace the static HTML template code, static HTML's HTML code, and going to paste it on the welcome underscore message.php, which is on views folder. Fine, let me copy and paste it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it on the welcome underscore message.php. Fine, if you refresh it, you will see the HTML content, but you will not see the JavaScript. The next step is to paste our CSS, JavaScript and images on a folder called assets. Assets, you can give any name, but we will give assets as its name. Make sure the location where I'm pasting it directly on the root folder. Fine, just copy it, all the required CSS, JS and images, and paste it inside the assets. Now once we have all the resources, now it's time to attach the URL. If you get into the source code, you can see CSS slash, but you can see it's above the assets. We need this URL plus assets and then the CSS folder. For that, what we'll do is we have a default function on Codeigniter, which is base underscore URL. If you remember, in the configuration section, we have passed the base URL. This is what we are going to do we have passed the base URL, and Codeigniter is fetching the base URL. Fine, just replace it. I'm going to pause the video, and once it's done, I'll show you, and use it on all CSS file, JavaScript file, and on all images. As I said, do this for all CSS file, JS file and images. This is done. This is just a single template. Now in the next tutorial we will focus on, this is the HTML template, we will focus on multiple pages HTML template. Fine, this looks exactly same as of the static HTML template. Thank you so much for listening. Let's meet on the next tutorial with which is of multiple HTML pages, and we will convert into Codeigniter framework. Thank you so much for listening.